It is my great pleasure to introduce Larry Jennings. He is a pastor of the Fellowship of the Inner Light. He's a husband, father, and grandfather. And he has worked as a manager of a funeral home for many, many years and still continues to help people with these kinds of situations. And we're so blessed to have you today, Larry. And we thank you again, too, for helping yesterday. And come on up. We look forward. His topic is seasons.
I mask out today, so you didn't have to look at all my little hearses. It's kind of fun. I like it. My granddaughter made that for me, actually. A short time ago, I came across a reading by Edgar Cayce, one that was familiar to me, that I'd heard many times before, but this year it kind of struck me and stuck with me, and I enjoyed it, and I want to share this short reading with you. Know this in self, that ye may never be so worldly, that you may not learn something from the viewing of a sunset, listening to the strain of music, the laughter of children, the song of the bird, the babbling of a brook. I love this reading from Edgar Cayce. It reminds me of the peace that I have always found myself in nature. And this year's been a special season for me. And it's been about seasons. I retired a year ago after 45 years of funeral service, and instead of relaxing and enjoying my newfound freedom, like all of us, I found myself on lockdown from COVID. This brought many changes to all of us, and it also brought me to a place of reflection. In my last talk in the first week of August, I talked about my own experience and having COVID and facing my own death. If you haven't listened to it, or you're interested in looking at other speakers, they all can be found on our webpage. You can go back and see these. But during this season of winter, this illness brought me closer to the source that lives within me. And this source lives within each of you also. This experience brought me closer to my own immortality, but it also took away the last fragments of my fear of death, as I know that someday I will leave this world and go home. This is how I spent the season of winter, becoming ill and then beginning down the road of recovering and a time of healing. This past winter brought many challenges, numerous trips to doctors as I slowly healed, but it also brought me to a place in my life where I sought healing and wisdom from within. When I retired, I was given a wonderful gift, a 2-year membership to Norfolk Botanical Gardens, and I can remember the thrill of learning that because of the size of their property, I think it's 750 acres, that there were no restrictions for masks. And a bonus, you didn't have to make reservations. After discovering the Cayce readings, I decided that Botanical Gardens was the perfect place for me to grow stronger and to heal. I began my morning walks going slowly at first and rebuilding my strength. Slowly, my breathing began to improve. And I did not need to stop as often to rest. Soon after, I was able to not stop at all. And as I recovered my breath from the lung damage done by COVID, I began to feel better. I began to feel alive again. Soon spring came, and the memory of winter began to fade away. I found myself renewed as the temperatures warmed and I could walk 5 miles comfortably through the gardens. As I walked, new life appeared all around me. New life also began to appear within me. I was being healed by Mother Earth, and somehow it awakened memories in me I hadn't thought of in years. Experiences I had had as a child, connecting to nature and recognizing her as a real living being. I could recall the smell of the grass on our front lawn as I rolled on it. I also recall lying on my back in the cool grass and watching the stars above me in awe. I can remember sitting beneath the tree, touching its bark and feeling its rough surface. I talked to the tree, and she answered back to me. I have always had these connections, and this year somehow it was awakened within me, and these memories come back to me. I can close my eyes and be there again. Standing here today, I can remember picking up a stone in the woods that I had found and placing it in the pocket of my jeans and bringing it home, simply because it had spoken to me. The earliest recollection that I can remember highlighting my relationship with Mother Earth and the unseen world was when I went to bed one night, and I watched as a small figure climbed out of the heating vent in my room and climbed onto my bed by using my covers as a ladder. When he reached the top of my bed, the small figure looked at me with a smile, and I felt a wave of terror come over me. Was I awake or was I dreaming? I quickly came to the realization that this was real. He did not speak. He simply continued walking until me, until he was standing on my chest, and he again smiled. And then he turned away, climbing down the side of my bed, returning to the heating vent and disappearing. I remember sitting upright in my bed, and I shook my head in amazement of what had just happened. My fear left me as my mother entered the room, sensing that I needed comfort. This happened to me before I was 5 years old. I never saw this figure again, but I can vividly remember him in detail. He stood about 2 foot tall. He had a white beard and blue eyes, a kind face. He is exactly what you would see if you opened up the pages of folklore when you looked up gnomes and elves. I remember his green outfit and his oversized hat. It was just a few years ago that my brother and I were sharing, and he told me that he had had the same exact experience in that same bedroom in the home that we grew up in. And his daughter, after sleeping in that room just once, refused ever to sleep there again when visiting her grandparents. She was just 4 years old. This shared experience brings both clarity and understanding that our world is so much more than what we see each day. Now, I know I've told this story here before, but it never ceases to amaze me, and my thoughts always go back to it when I'm reflecting on my experience of nature and the elemental kingdom. Recently, someone reminded me we are always striving to move forward, and if we focus on everyday events and what's being presented to us in the news, we will become lost. We must remain focused on our ideals, whether it be seeking peace by simply attuning to our surroundings and allowing our senses to open and experience our world from the perspective of our inner self, rather than what our outer self is seeing and experiencing. For me, when I allow myself to simply let go of my everyday thoughts, it allows me to experience the peace of the ideal I am seeking. This spring has been a wonderful season for me. It had not only helped me heal, but has also brought me closer to understanding myself and my relationship with the world that I live in. On my morning walks, I have come to know that I share our beautiful planet with so many different, beautiful, and loving companions. For example, I can remember this spring first seeing a new family of squirrels on one of the many trails at Botanical Gardens. They were always easy to recognize, as one had a white tail. I always found them running and chasing each other around a cluster of trees and bushes. So it became my routine to look for them, and I would often sit on a bench and quietly enjoy their antics. At first they were very timid, and as soon as I rounded the corner where I knew they lived, they would quickly hide. I learned to be patient and quiet, and they would appear, and they would allow me to take their pictures. This became my morning ritual each time I walked. But as spring moved forward, I rarely saw them, and then they were gone. Recently, I returned to that place, and to my surprise, about 5 feet from me on a branch stood the squirrel with a white tail, standing on his hindquarters and looking directly at me. He didn't run away as I approached, and as I quieted myself, he began to inch closer, and I could hear his voice speaking to me. Not an outward voice, but rather a voice from within. He asked me where I had been, and I told him I hadn't seen his family in a while, and I didn't always stop here now that they were gone. He responded that they no longer were young, and they had branched out to different places to start lives of their own. He told me that he recognized my quiet spirit and knew I had been coming to see them, and they had learned not to be frightened of me. They understood that I was simply coming to experience their joy and their friendship. I thanked him and felt a gentle breeze on the back of my neck and was astonished at what had just happened. He quietly slipped away, and I haven't seen him since, although I'll always have the photograph I took of him. Why do these things happen to me? I think if someone had watched this, perhaps they would have taken me away and had me checked out by a professional counselor. I have come to accept moments like this, and when I look back at them, I don't believe I'm special or gifted. We all have this ability within us. It is simply waiting for us to let go of our distractions, to allow our soul to attune to the world that surrounds us, a world that is accessible to all of us. Often as I walk, I find myself entering a state of meditation, as the Buddha often described as his walking meditation. Follow your breath and simply focus on walking heel to toe with each step. As I begin my walks, I thank the Creator who resides within me. Then I focus on my breath, breathing in and out, following each breath and repeating to myself over and over, heel to toe. Soon I am walking and enjoying the moment. I am in attunement with my higher self and can feel the energy around me as it vibrates and brings peace. During these times, I feel closer to Mother Earth, and often I become aware of other companions, such as a snake crossing my path or a turtle appearing where it would be unexpected. Even the flowers and the plants become alive, and I speak to them as I walk, thanking them for their beauty, and always thanking the elementals that are hard at work with each one of them. I understand that I am not the only one in this room who enjoys getting outdoors. Next time you go out, slow your breath and take a walk, and open yourselves to the energy that surrounds every object, from the stone on the ground to the blade of grass that has life within it. Spring soon ended, and the season of summer came to us. Warm sunshine and lots of outside activities. I traveled to the Outer Banks for a week and had a wonderful time enjoying family and watching the beautiful sunrises and sunsets. This summer had its checks and balances as COVID again ramped up its presence. I found myself continuing the long walks at Botanical Gardens, and it offered me a place of safety and peacefulness that I could not find anywhere else. I can remember a summer not so long ago as a child, and I found myself tuning into Mother Earth, and I decided to start a nature club with my neighborhood playmates. We must have been about 7 years old. We became aware of the world surrounding us, and we wanted to experience it in our relationship with Mother Earth. These were the days when you left your house in the morning and returned only for lunch and dinner. We collected stones and feathers and anything else we could find. We watched insects and birds and the chipmunk who lived under our back steps. No one had to tell us of the connection we had with our brothers and sisters in nature. We simply knew, and we could feel the life within everything around us. Those were wonderful days, and like most children, we grew older. These connections we soon forgot, and we didn't recognize that life surrounds us everywhere we go. Rather, we tuned ourselves into our outer selves, away from our inner selves. We all do this as we grow older. As our innocence is replaced by a growing up in a world that leads us away from our imaginations and childlike innocence. For me, though, it seemed to be different. It never left me when I grew up. I can remember after my playmates were gone, simply lying beneath a tree, enjoying her cool shade from the summer sun. As I laid beneath the tree, I could feel connected to its beautiful spirit. Our unseen energies would commingle with one another, and we both not only recognized each other, but we understood each other. I would have a knowing that this tree had a spirit, a personality of its own. And as I laid there, I would tell the tree I was thankful for its shade and its beauty. And I can remember hearing a voice within me speaking back to me and telling me how happy that made them feel. I remember one time when the birch tree I was under told me it could feel the love flowing between us, and how grateful it was for this experience. Growing up with this awareness always seemed to give me a calm approach to life and the ability to listen to others. For if we listen, we can all understand what each other is feeling, and through this experience find a common bond. So simple, but sometimes so hard to accomplish. Quiet your thoughts and go within and listen to the voice, which is the voice of God speaking directly to you. Everything you desire to learn and understand is already there. You must simply slow down and pause and take a moment to attune to the source within. I remember last week walking through the gardens, and suddenly a snake appeared on the trail before me that I was walking. I quietly watched her, and she stopped and looked at me. She didn't appear worried, but rather calmly looked at me, trying to understand why I was there. She eventually then went about her travels as I did. And as I walked away, I somehow had a feeling that this was more than a chance encounter. Was there a connection to its appearance in my journey of seasons? Okay, now, I sat back and I thought, a snake crossed in front of you. That's all. Then I remembered how many times this had happened to me over the course of this year's seasons. As these memories came back, I remembered a large black snake crossing in front of me this past winter. I also recalled watching a snake pass in front of me this spring, a garden snake. And now it was summer, and again the snake crossed my path. I realized that a pattern had emerged, and a chance to learn had presented itself to me repeatedly. I had chosen each time to simply enjoy the moment and then forget it and move on. This time I decided to dig a little deeper. I began to do some research and found that the Native American culture believed the snake was a symbol of transformation and healing. Because it sheds its skin, it can also be seen as a symbol of death and rebirth. I learned further that when a snake enters your life, it brings about change and healing. It brings rebirth and the powers of creativity and wisdom. All of these sounded so familiar. Truly, this was a message for me, so I continued to research, and I began to understand the meaning of one of God's creations appearing to me on multiple occasions. I decided to meditate and to seek an answer from within by opening all my internal senses for an answer. As I slid into meditation, I soon found myself being invited to my grandfather's teepee. My grandfather often appears to me in the quiet when I am seeking answers concerning Mother Earth and my relationship with this vast kingdom of nature. As I entered the teepee, he sat on the opposite side of the entrance, and there was a wonderful, inviting fire between us. He motioned for me to sit and quietly waited for me to initiate a conversation. As one of my spirit guides, we were very familiar with each other, and I understood he already knew while I was there. After a moment of silence, I spoke to him, and I told him I had been experiencing a lot of change in my life this last year, and as the seasons passed, I was reflecting on my life. I told him I had noticed an increased awareness of my dreams and my ability to see beyond the veil. He looked up and smiled and said, yes, I was going through a transformation after my severe illness and stepping through the veil. He told me, you have seen the other side, and you made a choice to stay here in your earthly body. He said he had sent many messages to me. He had sent the squirrels, the birds, the butterflies, and the dragonflies to get my attention. He said the elementals have been in your dreams, as I have, each of us opening portals of understanding. Finally, when the third snake appeared, he said, he stopped and looked at you, and this opened within you a desire to understand more and to seek wisdom. He again smiled and told me that my life had taken me down many pathways. These pathways have moved you towards a greater understanding of yourself and the relationship you have within the circle of life and all of God's creations. New seasons will be coming. The fall is only a short time away and will bring you even closer to the wisdom you seek and the relationship you have attuned to with Mother Earth. He continued, soon after that winter will come, and you will reflect on the past year with greater wisdom and understanding. He continued and told me that when I returned from crossing the veil, I had brought back with me a special gift, being able to attune to nature and to those that have left this plane with greater clarity. Grandfather explained to me that when I crossed over, I had experienced being in the white light of the Creator and knowing his great love for me. A love so pure and so strong, it still resonates within me. He looked at me and told me he loved me, and he will always be there for me. He reminded me to slow down when you experience something that seems out of the ordinary. For this may be a message for you. When this happens, go to a quiet place and meditate, and allow yourself to listen for the answer from within. This summer has been a real awakening for me, and I'm still healing from my illness last winter. I will always try to remember to be thankful for the experience, for our perceived darkest moments are our greatest opportunities for growth. This reawakening in me has brought me closer to knowing myself and knowing who I truly am, not just a person living here on planet Earth, not just a soul experiencing life by occupying a body. I am so much more. I am that spark of life I saw so long ago, leaving the light of God that I witnessed in my book in the Hall of Records. I am truly God living this lifetime and experiencing my God self in this body. Each of us has experienced the many seasons of our life, and each time we quietly attune to the source, we grow and we gain more understanding. This growth and understanding brings us closer to our source and the reality that we are truly one. I look forward to many more seasons with the wisdom of what I have learned. And again, I give thanks to Mother Earth, and I hope each of you, through my experiences, have grown with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.